And we are live.
This is the CrackBerry podcast for March 26, 2017.
Hey, everybody. Kevin here. Let the CrackBerry podcast fun begin. On this episode, we will be talking about, well, the BlackBerry KEYone, of course, and specifically that it's finally checked in at the FCC, or is it checked out of the FCC? It's checked in or out, but it's definitely at the FCC. I wonder if that means they have one in their hands or it's just paperwork. We'll talk about it more shortly. We'll also cover BlackBerry at Hawk receiving FedRAMP authorization for crisis communication software. I just got back from New York, where I was all this week. It was a lot of fun. The CrackBerry meetup tour continues, and we'll debrief a little bit about the interview I did from the New York Stock Exchange on Cheddar TV. We have some fun CrackBerry community reminders today, like how you can buy a limited edition CrackBerry 10th anniversary mug now until March 29th. And I'll also give you a reminder of how you can win a BlackBerry KEYone for yourself.
Woo-hoo!
And before this episode is over, we have to talk about my favorite smartphone accessory, which if you're watching this video, I'll hold it up to the camera right now. But if you're not watching and you're listening via audio, you'll have to tune in to the end of the show for the full run through. I am your host, CrackBerry Kevin, joined tonight by our newest CrackBerry contributor, James Nieves. Hey, James.
Whoop.
You crushed it in New York City this week. We'll talk about that too, of course. And I need to welcome Blaze, but Blaze, I feel like I want to call you Sir Blaze because you've been knighted by the king of BlackBerry, John Chen himself, the CEO, with the prestigious BlackBerry Service Award, which I'm told only in the history of BlackBerry has ever been given out to BlackBerry employees, but a special exemption was made to hook up Blaze. CrackBerry Kevin got one too, and our community manager, James Falconer, got one too, which is pretty awesome in honor of us celebrating 10 years of CrackBerry this year. So, Sir Blaze, I tip my hat to you.
Thank you.
Fine fella. You look like a little taller and just like more glowy than ever.
Yeah.
How's it going?
It's going good, man.
So tell us about your service award.
Well,
everybody wants to know, did it come with a check? I don't believe it did.
No, unfortunately, there was no check involved, but there was a very nice letter that came from.
There?
Yeah, I don't know if people can see it on there.
Yeah, I can see it. Chris, congratulations on 10 years of CrackBerry. Your support and loyalty is very much appreciated. Hashtag Team BlackBerry. John Chen, signed by John Chen, Executive Chairman of the Board and Chief Executive Officer of BlackBerry.
Yeah, so that
congrats,
was
Sir Blaze.
Yeah, that was awesome to get that sort of recognition. I mean, as you noted, they basically only hand them out to, or generally only hand them out to employees. So to have that come in as a surprise was pretty awesome. It's always, everybody always feels better when they get some recognition for their work and time and effort that they put in. So it was pretty awesome to get that in the mail.
Well deserved. And I mean, I just love that it went to Blaze, because I think Sir Blaze sounds amazing. I think you should update everything you have to Sir Blaze. Just be like,
Sir Blaze.
Your Twitter handle.
Knighted by Jason.
Everything changes. You are Sir Blaze to me forevermore. I'm pretty excited today because I've busted out. I'm going to flex my pipes here. That's a pretty horrible job. If you're watching on video, the Formula One season has begun. Now, of course, BlackBerry's, I think, 3-year contract with Mercedes-Benz is over, but I still have this sweet T-shirt I like to wear. Although my office is so cold, they turn off the heat on the weekends. I will be wearing my To Me vest until the end of the show, which is another fantastic mobile accessory because you can actually roll this thing up and it becomes a pillow. It like packs into a little couch pocket in the back of it. It's very functional. Great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, very.
The fact that it rolls into a pillow just sold me.
Well, no, it's cool. You like maybe at the end of the show, once we get through the stuff, I'll take it off and you turn it inside out, zip it up, and you kind of just give it a roll, folds in, and then there's a pocket there. It zips up, and now you've got a pillow. So whether you're traveling or you're kicked out of the house, or stuff happens when you're a disturber of the peace. It's very versatile. So. Okay, James. serious business now. Let's hand it over to you. What should we talk about first?
Let's talk ad hoc. This first FedRAMP authorization for crisis communication seems like a big deal. Blaze did a really nice write-up about it, really just kind of giving those accolades, right, to ad hoc for being kind of first in the door with this type of software suite. Blaze, did you have any other impressions on this coming from the FAA, Department of Treasury, and whatnot? Seems like BlackBerry's ad hoc is really kind of taken over in terms of crisis communication across multiple layers of the U.S. government.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things there is that they noted plenty of the relationships that they have. BlackBerry Ad Hoc currently protects more than 70% of the U.S. federal government employees using on-premises software and cloud services. That actually includes the FAA, the Department of Treasury, Department of Energy. So basically, what it breaks down to is that the FedRAMP authorization means that it's government approved. They basically got, to put it down in the most simplistic terms, is that they got ad hoc approved for government use across the board. So any government organization can essentially roll it out now. And I mean, it's one of those things where, like, the Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Veteran Affairs, they're all using this stuff now. And it's one of those things where, you know, the crisis communication systems that are implemented, basically they're becoming more important and more relevant, I guess you could say, especially in these days. I mean, we just saw the London attacks and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where, you know, you got to have these crisis communications in place to be able to go ahead and make sure that the information is getting out there to the appropriate people, right? Otherwise, you have a breakdown in communication, and you don't want that stuff happening. For BlackBerry to go ahead and sort of lead the way on this is really, really one of those, you know, feathers in the cap, so to speak, because it kind of flies under the radar in terms of you know, the consumer level interest, but when you get into the higher level enterprise things, that's where it really becomes one of the highlights within BlackBerry services.
I think it's a good
Totally.
point.
It's really interesting to see kind of how widespread it all is as well, right? It's like bi-channel. It covers everything, cross-platform, iOS, Android devices, even Windows. But you're even talking things like mobile apps, texting, loudspeakers in a building. Like, that's really cool to have it integrated across so many different channels like that. Yeah,
and especially when the need arises. I mean, it's one of those systems that you hope that you never have to use, but when you do need it, you're grateful that it's there, and you're grateful that it has access across that many platforms and that many systems, right?
I think this is the kind of stuff too that for BlackBerry is, I don't want to say the word attention getting, but it's like reminding like consumers that BlackBerry's here and they have some heavy hitting stuff. You know, I think on some of our recent anniversary podcasts, we've talked about, you know, in certain markets, it's like BlackBerry's been forgotten. And I think what was interesting with me being in New York City this week, I actually saw the BlackBerry logo show up many times on people's phones, but they weren't holding a BlackBerry in their hand, right? They were holding an iPhone, and they opened up their BlackBerry secure messaging, or their secure, you know, their work app, right? Which I think is actually, when I was looking at it, was the Good Technologies app in many cases that got rebranded to BlackBerry.
Yeah.
But they were excited about it. It was funny because as users, they were like, yeah, I got BlackBerry on my phone. I love this thing. It works great. I love the way the calendar works and the email and everything. And it's their, you know, corporate sign-in. They're working for banks and those kinds of things. And I think these services, you know, as they get out there, they start to really build that recognition that BlackBerry does more than just smartphones, which is interesting because, you know, as we look at some of the BlackBerry mobile stuff that we've been talking about, and maybe we'll say this for later in the show, I think there's still this massive confusion that's going to happen for probably a long, long time to come among consumers when the name BlackBerry comes up. You know, it even happened on that Cheddar interview we'll talk about in a little bit. So I think this kind of stuff is good though, because it just reminds people that, yeah, BlackBerry is doing some big things that is very important, and ad hoc's a good example of that.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, that was one of the realizations that took place a long time ago in terms of like BlackBerry coming out and saying, listen, we're going to be hitting these multiple platforms. But over the course of time, people forgot that that was actually part of the core services that BlackBerry is planning on doing, right? And now all of a sudden, like you said, you see these BlackBerry logos popping up on iPhones, you see them popping up on Samsung devices and all that stuff. And again, it's one of those things that they told people that they were working on long ago. Then they got into the process of getting there, and now you're starting to see it turn up. But unfortunately, some people, we have short memory spans, and they forgot about that whole process. But now it's getting reinvigorated because they're starting to see these logos pop up. They're starting to see these brand recognitions pop up. And basically with BlackBerry being able to go ahead and hit different multiple platforms now, it really, really speaks to the level of which they can actually get in there and say, hey, look, BlackBerry is working on software. They're working on things. And, whether you're an old school user or a new school user or whatever the case may be, once you see the BlackBerry logo, you know that it's the BlackBerry logo, right? Like it's a memorable logo, even if it's something that you haven't seen in years.
Yeah, it's it's global brand, right? I remember every year there used to be the I think it's like the brands ending in a letter Z or Z annual survey of the top 100 global brands, right? And BlackBerry was on that rise from I think it was like 2008, 9, 10, 11, and they made it as high as I want to say 14th spot. I can't remember if they may have even cracked the top 10 one year to like number 7 or something. But it was crazy to see because it was a bigger brand than Amazon. I think it was bigger than eBay at the time. Like, this is a global freaking recognized brand. So you're right. Even if you haven't seen it in a long time, it's not forgotten. Maybe there's a younger generation of kid out there who hasn't, doesn't have the same recognition that maybe the three of us would have, and people older than us. But you're definitely right. Ad hoc's done.
Well.
Yeah.
Ad hoc's crushed. I just want to close out here talking a little bit about that cybersecurity operations center that they're opening up as well, where they're gonna have state-of-the-art monitoring and control. So again, establishing a BlackBerry kind of knock, so to speak, for all of this stuff ran off that ad hoc infrastructure. It seems cool. BlackBerry's putting themselves in these places of security that are really important. So it's really cool to see that they're kind of spearheading this across the board.
Where's that going to be based out of? Did they actually announce that, or?
I believe they announced it previously, and it was going to be in Washington, D.C., but it's up by some people that they actually pulled on. So it seems like a really tight-knit initiative that they're working with to really be there as an alert system throughout the country. So again, positive for BlackBerries across the board.
Cool. All right, let's talk about something else. Where do we want to go from here?
I think it was next on the list. You were in New York, basically. So let's go. Let's talk about Cheddar.
Oh, yeah. So went from Miami, which you guys did a great job on the podcast last Sunday. Or sorry, Monday you guys recorded it. I flew on Monday from... Yeah, that was Monday, right? Yeah, on Monday I flew from Miami to New York. So I was there most of this week. And, beyond doing our CrackBerry meetup, did some interview time, had a lot of meetings out there. New York is just a fantastic city for me to be in from a mobile nations perspective because so many of our people are nearby. So even, Daniel Rubino of Windows Central fame was in the city one day for a Microsoft briefing. So we caught up on a bunch of things. We got Chris Mink, who's our commerce content director, came into the city. I had Simon Sage fly in from Ottawa, and James, you flew in from Florida as well for the meetup. And you took my KEYone around the city and shot a bunch of photos, which was fantastic. We got to build up the B-roll gallery for CrackBerry, that kind of thing. So it was just a really productive week. Although I gotta say, New York, there's something about being there that just makes me want to drink a lot more. It's every day, it's really hard for me not to want to consume a beverage with any meal I have. And then it's hard for me to consume only one beverage. So I'm like, it is a city that I love. I just want to be a workaholic there. And then it takes its toll and I need to get out. It's almost like Vegas for me, except a more productive Vegas. But no, so on the Tuesday, I did an interview with Cheddar TV, which is this new sort of online, very social Bloomberg of sorts. You could think of it. It's like business tech TV. Their studio is actually on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. So I think I was on at about 3:30 p.m. local time, got there about a half hour early. It was kind of fun. You walk up to the gate and you're like, I'm here for Cheddar. And they point you to the right direction. You get scanned in. And, I was in the sort of the green room of sorts waiting till they were ready for me. And then I, went onto the stock exchange floor, which I had been there before because I took, finance in my college days, university days. So I did one of the school trips there. So I'd been there before, actually, which is cool. And then when I waited my turn, and then I joined the two hosts to talk about the BlackBerry KEYone, which they were excited about. And it was more like being on a podcast than it was being on an interview, right? with hosts who are just like jumping around like, ah! So it was fun. They took to the device right away. Very positive overall. I think they were both former BlackBerry users, but years and years and years ago. So, like a lot of people, that was probably one of their first smartphones. And like a lot of people, when they upgraded away from it because, they wanted apps. And they were very happy to pick it up. And they were like, yeah, this is good. And they were knowledgeable about Android, where they're like, oh, it's Nougat. They're like, asked about a couple of the specs and they asked about the price and he's like, that's cheap, so it's funny, right? We've seen a lot of people saying, wow, they wish the KEYone was $50 cheaper, that kind of thing. And in the meantime, this person's take was like, wait, that's way cheaper than a Pixel XL or an iPhone. And it's a premium phone. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from everybody I see who picks up the KEYone is nobody would ever say the words mid-range, right? This is premium feeling BlackBerry in the hand. So I thought the price was really reasonable. I kind of just worked in most of my talking points that I have when I start talking about the KEYone and showing it off to people. So it was not a difficult interview. I just treated it like I did a podcast. But what was really interesting though is, they had a really good time with me and, they retweeted it out lots of times, that kind of thing. And they're like, hey, can you come back for this week for the earnings report from BlackBerry, which is going to happen on Thursday, I think is the big day.
Yeah, it's the 31st, I believe.
But it's really interesting because I can still see, even in that interview, I tried to kind of clarify, and they know, they're like, yeah, okay, so BlackBerry has licensed out hardware, TCL's doing the KEYone with, via BlackBerry Mobile as the brand. But then even on, I think one of the screen caps that came up during the interview, they were showing, the market share of BlackBerry, and it's like, less than 1%. And it's one of these things that's just like, it's like, well, yes, but in that case, they're talking BlackBerry OS phones, as in BlackBerry 10 or BlackBerry OS. They're not thinking about Android at all. And they're trying to do this story where, I don't know, it paints this picture of like, okay, well, BlackBerry, here's the market share. Would you buy the phone because maybe the company's not going to be around or something next week because this is where their share price is at. And I think it's it's a tough story for everybody to get, even knowledgeable people in the space, whether it's media, whether it's investors, and whether it's consumers. So part of me is like, yeah, I could do that interview on Thursday, but then part of me is like, well, I don't really want to because, we'll see what the BlackBerry stock stuff is, at price comes in. It's never a great story lately. Maybe there'll be some surprises, but I don't necessarily think so. But then in the meantime, at least it gives me a chance to kind of keep messaging like, guys, you got to keep the phone from the stock price thing separate now, because I don't know any of the terms of this licensing agreement, but I'm pretty sure that if, say, the KEYone crushes it on sales, I don't think your BlackBerry stock price, if you own it, is necessarily just going to go through the roof again, because it's going to be the licensing partners who I think probably make the majority of the profit from phone sales going forward.
If anything, TCL should go up.
Well, yeah, exactly, right. Or if it's BB Mariputa or whoever else, right? Because they're the ones now, doing sales, marketing, manufacturing, like they're taking the share of the risk expense. BlackBerry's collecting a licensing fee, which, I don't know if that was paid out up front and then it's a per unit thing, or if it's an annual thing based on volume or just a flat fee. Like, I don't know, but I just don't know if the phone story ties into the stock price that much, regardless of that thing, right? So when they want to show like the market share graphs and things, because there's a news story headline to be seen, it's just no longer the representative type of storyline. So we'll see if I make it back there. It'll depend if I'm traveling or not and everything else. But I don't know. You guys watched it, so I haven't rewatched it because I hate watching myself on anything. So how did I do? Give me a score out of 10.
I think you really did a 10, especially considering the energy that was, you were up against. One of the comments you made that I thought was right on the nose was about it's for the road warrior. And I thought that's it right there. It really is for that person who's on the go and just needs something totally reliable.
Yeah,
so that resonated pretty well with me.
Communication tool first, right? Like communication on the go, people who value having a battery with lots of juice left at 4 a.m. If you want a media-centric device first, and you want to be playing VR, doing VR experiences and 3D gaming on your phone all day, probably other phones that would be a better first choice, right? But I think it's that niche phone. Totally. That's cool. Glad I got that across. Blaze, thoughts?
No, I thought it was a great interview in terms of getting the information out there and everything along those lines. Basically, I mean, one thing that you have to consider is the amount of information that they're packing in a short time, and the questions that were being thrown at you in that time frame. I thought that basically you relayed the answers really, really good to be able to go ahead and get the actual story out there in that short amount of time. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's not like a podcast where we can sit down and we can spend 45 minutes talking about the device. It's like, you got to get as much as you can in possibly like 7 minutes. And chances are they're probably going to cut you off in the mid sentence. Right?
Exactly. It's funny.
It was good.
It's funny because I haven't, CBK was in retirement for a long time, so now it's coming back to full swing. And for things like that, you start to learn your sound bites, right? It's like you start to talk like sound bite at a time on any given topic. How's the battery life? Boom, here's the sound bite. What do you think of the keyboard? Boom, here's this. Tell me more about, BlackBerry Mobile and BlackBerry TCL. It's like, boom, here's this. So hopefully it'll get more polished if I do it. But it is kind of an exciting part of doing the, trying to take some of our CrackBerry meetups around is, maybe depending on the cities, there's more chances to do that. And just, it's fun, right? It's a nice balance. It's like, meet up with all the hardcore BlackBerry fans who are just my favorite people in the world, get to do something like that, which kind of spreads the word a little bit more. And, in the meantime, it kills the time while we're all just waiting to get, be able to go to a store and actually buy the phones. So entertaining for us a little bit, at least.
Yeah. But I mean, going back to the whole BlackBerry and BlackBerry Mobile conversation just for a bit. I mean, I remember a conversation that we had when it was announced that the deal was going through with TCL. I'm like, it's going to take a while to go ahead and transition that conversation from BlackBerry to BlackBerry Mobile. And you're like, no, it'll be fine. And now you're like, well, there's still a little bit of time to go and get that direct message out there.
But you're right. But this is gonna be beyond just like the BlackBerry Mobile thing. I think one of the things I've realized too is, even on things like the social accounts, right? Like we've seen that there's a BB Mobile Twitter account, but there's still like the BlackBerry Twitter account. There's the BlackBerry Help Twitter account. And if somebody, buys the KEYone a month from now, 2 months from now, whatever, and, is like, I don't know, maybe they have a question or they have, they want to say, thanks for my new phone or whatever, anything like that. They're tweeting a photo of it or Instagramming it, and they want to tag like at BlackBerry. Well, probably by default, you're going to tag at BlackBerry because if you don't know the full story, you wouldn't actually know to even look for something other than BlackBerry at BlackBerry. And, even as you type into like the search field to pull up suggested, channels and accounts, you're probably going to get that first and foremost because it has like the biggest popularity to it and everything. So it's going to take a while, I think, to train people over into this habit, you know. And then the crazy thing to me is obviously the phone story is still the BlackBerry brand. You know, we just talked about like ad hoc, and it's like, this is good for BlackBerry to do because it'll start to reinforce that, you know, the software side of the company. But, you know, that brand that we said was like the top 14th in the world globally was known for one thing at that point: phones. Everybody knows it as a phone brand. Like, honestly, to me, it's almost like they should have, you know, and you know, somebody suggested this to me. It might have been at the New York meetup, and I was like, I don't even disagree. They were like, BlackBerry should have just rebranded to QNX and then kept the phones as BlackBerry, because QNX had a very good, you know, maybe not a consumer story, but a pretty good industry story. Obviously, used everywhere. Again, we always talk about, you know, coming back to sound bites, it's used in nuclear power plants and in automotive and in, you know, aeronautical transportation. Like, QNX already has a footprint and claws into like every industry. And now that BlackBerry is about enterprise software and industry software, it's almost like, well, why didn't they just keep that for QNX and then, you know, done the phones as BlackBerry? And then I'm like, that would just solve all the problems. If you're watching this live in the live chat, tell me if that's right or wrong, because I'm really curious to get some feedback there. But would that have solved all the problems?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's almost like they could have stayed research in motion to a degree, right? Minus all the legacy of that name.
That's the thing. That's the thing that it really leads back to, is that they should have just maintained research in motion. And if they had maintained research in motion, they could have basically kept BlackBerry, branched that off as a brand, and then they could have brought QNX in-house as well under the research in motion brand. Because QNX itself, I don't necessarily disagree with the idea of a rebranding or anything like that, or even QNX, but QNX has its own sort of space that it's into. If they had just maintained research in motion and kept QNX under the research in motion brand, and then let BlackBerry go on its own, it would have been, I think that would have been the perfect scenario.
I like it. That's pretty. I wonder if they could still do that. I bet. I mean, they're not. I really completely don't think they're going to do that. But
no,
that would be pretty amazing. Let's bring back.
I mean, half of the documentation out there still says research in motion, anyways. When you look at it,
maybe we should.
One of my favorite.
Do some T-shirts. Bring back RIP and.
Rimpire Strikes Back. Yeah.
We can make the Rimpire Strikes Back T-shirt popular again.
Favorite John Chen quotes is that, you know, if you were to rename your child, he's not going to do better at school, right? Which is more or less what Thorsten Heinz did when he rebadged the company to BlackBerry. Whereas John Chen gets it, and he's like, the name is ultimately irrelevant to our focus, right, and how we perform and what we actually accomplish under it. So it's fun to look back and think, you know, what could have been done, but here we are now with the BlackBerry brand.
Yeah, it's a great brand, but it's a great brand for phones, you know, and that's my thing. So I'm just like, some of the little confusing parts as everything rolls out, I'm like, they're going to be confusing for a while. And I think the more, you know, this is the fun part of traveling right now. So frequently since Barcelona, I'm talking to people like all over the place, and it's clear it's going to take some time for this story to like permeate brains and for people to actually get it, and you know, for everybody to start to get it. But you know, I don't know if the average person wants to think that hard about something like this. No. So I'm like, well, it would just be easier if BlackBerry meant phones, and you know, research in motion or QNX or both meant enterprise stuff. I don't know.
I mean, even to this day, there's like family members that don't call BlackBerry BlackBerry. They call it research in motion. You know what I mean? They could easily transition back to research in motion.
It's funny because I owned a BlackBerry for 2 years, I think, before I realized there was a company called Research in Motion. I was like, oh, I just want the phone. Who cares? All right, but no, NYC. So we had we had the Cheddar interview, which was great, and then we had the actual NYC meetup the next day, which was amazing. I mean, James, you were there. You've been to a couple. You were at Miami also. I don't like to call favorites because I think each event has been completely unique and awesome. Like our obviously our Mobile World Congress event was just the first. It was super special. It was intimate, and it was like a whirlwind adventure. Like people flying in there for 48 hours, flying home, just insane. Our Toronto meetup was like, you know, kind of that Canadian hometown first thing, and it was like came back over the border with a couple phones, so it was just like super exclusive to be able to go play with the phone so soon right after the event. Winnipeg, hometown of CrackBerry, like just the first time we've ever done an event here in 10 years. So that was super special also, and everybody there was super hardcore. And then Miami was just fun. And I mean, we had some total characters there, and just everybody's so passionate. Like Mr. BlackBerry from Puerto Rico was my favorite though. He's just had a fanny pack full of BlackBerry devices, including that sunburnt orange.
Yes, I have pictures. That's awesome.
Which I never owned, and I always wanted that, and I never owned that model. So I was super jealous or super envious. And then New York, which, you know, to be honest, in the past, that was the city where we've done meetups before, right? I don't think we've ever, but, you know, we had once a casual Toronto meetup, but, you know, New York is where we had a couple awesome meetups in 2013 around the BlackBerry 10 launch. So to have, a KEYone preview meetup there was totally fun, and, you know, awesome turnout. We had about 200 people come throughout the night, had a venue all to ourselves. The only problem in New York is it's really expensive to book anything there for like that. Yeah. You know, if it was 10 of us just meeting up in a bar, it wouldn't be a problem. We would just pay the tab. But, you know, once you have more than 50 people or 25 people, it's like, no, you need to like book a venue, event fees, But it was total legit. It was like security guard out front. We had a DJ. You know, the bar was staffed. They brought out food. You know, everybody we worked with was super pro. So it just worked out like fantastic. Totally classy too. I don't know. I didn't even wear a CrackBerry t-shirt for that one. I like wore my fancy sport coat and brown shoes because I'm like, I paid a lot of money for that sport coat and brown shoes. I need to cost average down per wear at least a few more times. So if I see any comments that say, Kevin, you're wearing the same blazer and shoes, it's like, hell yeah, I'm gonna wear them till the cost per use stuff. Pretty funny.
It was really impressive. I mean, it was literally perfect. I could not think of a better venue for us. It was comfortable seating. There was ample lighting. I mean, the vibe and energy, the flow around the room, everything was just like really, really on point. So,
and I found out after, like when we booked it, I had no idea if it was a good venue or not. And then I had probably a dozen people through the night were like, "This venue's amazing," because I guess it's called Up and Down, but it used to be called Nell's, something like that, Old Nell's. And they're just like, it's a real sort of celebrity hangout. Like I think 2 Chainz was there right before or the night before us. And like Rihanna's been there. Like it's just, it's like a very popular, cool place.
That's like the BlackBerry 10 one too, though. We were at One Oak.
Yeah, we were at One Oak. Right? Yeah, no, same thing. Just we got super lucky. I don't know if this is just New York is all awesome is what I'm learning now over time, or we seem to get lucky picking good venues, but it was a super cool place. So we will have more meetups. I'm trying to lock in where we're going to head to next. I was hoping already to have done that, but it's not quite done yet. So I'm hoping by like end of day, Monday, Tuesday, I'll be able to say maybe like, hey, taking CrackBerry here or there. And, you know, the way it worked too, I know I've seen a couple comments asking, but you know, BlackBerry Mobile was awesome in sponsoring our Mobile World Congress meetup, and we were super good on our budgeting and didn't spend all the money, so we came in under budget. So that's been what's enabled us to do a handful of these things now. We just kind of spent the rest going to more cities, having some fun with it, and you know, when that money runs out, we got to try to get some more in the bank to do more meetups, but. You know, everybody seems super happy with it, and I think all the energy we're seeing come out of it is so cool. It's just been great for hardcore BlackBerry people to get a chance to go on hands-on early as I don't know. I feel like we're kind of rebuilding the BlackBerry community right now. You know, I know Blaze, James, you guys have done an awesome job the last few years keeping the keeping the action alive. But I think it's sometimes events like this, offline, real world, that really make a big difference. And I don't know, I feel like we got some momentum going. So I'm all in on let's make BlackBerry just a phone to be proud of again. And I think not that BlackBerry 10 wasn't an awesome OS. It's just like, now it's Android. Now the bigger audience of the world can go after it again because the apps are there, and maybe we can kickstart it with some of these efforts. So I don't know. Keep watching CrackBerry to see where we're going next with the meetups. And I think one of the things I wanted to get out there too is, I know like globally there are just so many regional BlackBerry fans, and I mean the word regional, like located all over the place. And I keep meeting people too who are like, hey, I have my BBM group I'm with, right? And there's like 20 fans spread out, maybe living in one city or in a different pocket. Or there's other obviously other like BlackBerry websites around the internet, people who have Instagram accounts with a lot of followers. And I think, if we go back to the heydays of, BlackBerry years ago, it's almost like we're all little competitors against each other, right? Because it's like, well, I want my site to be bigger than your site. I want to have more followers than you on Twitter, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, it's 2017. We just it's either BlackBerry, phones take off again or they don't. And I think if we can all work together as a kick-ass, BlackBerry community, that's the real goal and opportunity here. So I think with that note, it's like if you're somebody where you live around the world and you're leading, that sort of BlackBerry fan group or club or, website, you're in our space, you follow CrackBerry for years and you do your thing locally, reach out to us. And I don't know, I don't know. I don't have an exact plan in my mind yet, but I'm like, let's figure out how to coordinate our efforts around the globe. And maybe we can do some more things, because Kevin only scales so much, and James only scales so much, and Blaze only scales so much. So maybe we can figure out how to do like meetups in a box. I mean, it's funny. Michelle's got it down to an art now where, and I bought a new suitcase. I think I posted a picture on Twitter the other day, so I could actually fit our little step and repeat banners into it. And I'm like, to have a CrackBerry meetup takes three things. You need a step and repeat, you need CrackBerry coasters, and CrackBerry napkins. And once you have all those things, it's like, anywhere you go, you can have a meetup and get BlackBerry fans together.
In the middle of a park, right? To start whipping things out.
Yeah, right. But isn't that true? It's like as soon as you have a step and repeat, coasters and napkins, you're like, boom, this is on. So I don't know. I think I'm trying to think what's the best email. James, you're the new guy on the team. Maybe we should have people email you.
Yeah, it's my name, james.nieves@crackberry.com. Hit us up on Twitter if that's easier for you. Yeah, we'll funnel all of that toward me, and we'll figure it out, right? We'll get everyone together, make sure we can have that community force. It could be a group podcast. It could be, maybe a community post where we're sharing something on the blog, but we definitely want to do that outreach with everyone, right? I don't speak, German, or I don't speak Russian. So like having those voices around the world where we can collaborate and kind of work together, it just amplifies the messaging so much more. And it's fun, right? We get to interact with one another.
It's totally fun. And it's like, I think it's unique in the mobile tech space still, and I think it's something that's it's always been uniquely like BlackBerry, CrackBerry, etc., to get this kind of love out there. But let's work together on it. So got it. I'm excited, and we'll see where we're going next. But I will say, as I've been trying to plan things out to keep it efficient for travel, it's like little clusters. So I'm thinking, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, are there 3 cities I can hit up that are close by? So I don't know. I think maybe like a good example in Canada would be, maybe I'll like fly out to Vancouver and then be like Vancouver Thursday night, Friday night, Edmonton, Saturday night, Calgary. I can fly home on Sunday and then, get in a few good days of normality and work. And my wife has been incredibly understanding this like last 2 months. But it is crazy. So maybe we can we'll pull it off, but keep it locked. We'll figure out when and where the next meetups are going to be. Hopefully we can do a few more of them. Now, Oh, Blaze, we got to remind people to buy the 10th year anniversary mug.
Oh yeah, because today is the 27th, and I do believe that, or no, today's the 26th. I'm getting ahead of myself. I do believe that expires on the 29th. So if you haven't had the opportunity or haven't placed your order yet, if you want to make sure you get your hands on a CrackBerry limited edition 10th anniversary mug, make sure that you hit up the CrackBerry website and place your order for one. Like I said, on the 29th, they're gone, and we're probably never going to have that exact same mug replicated again. So if you want one, make sure you pick one up.
It's quite nice. It's very it looks pro, very classy.
I know,
Yeah,
I'm kind of
jet
jealous of
black.
everybody else because I've noticed that people within the US are like getting theirs on Twitter and they're sharing the pictures of them. And
Wait,
Michelle ordered one for me, but my delivery in Canada is taking a little bit
but I
longer.
don't get. So wait, do they ship as soon as you order them?
No. Well, some of them, it basically goes by like, when you put in an order, there has to be a certain amount that gets ordered before they start printing the process up, right? But I think where our orders were coming in a little bit higher than what would be considered normal, they started the process already
Oh, cool.
and shipped them out. So
That's pretty good. I see there's 145 have been sold.
right. So basically,
awesome.
they ramped them up. They shipped out the ones that they had, and if you're in the U.S., chances are you're probably going to get yours before I even get mine, which is unfortunate. But
That's awesome, though. On the reminder note, too, over on Android Central, at the beginning of March, I posted a win an IOU for a BlackBerry KEYone from CrackBerry Kevin giveaway. And I do believe March 31st will be the deadline for that one. And I'll announce the winner on April 1st. So if you have not yet registered there, you should do so. I just dropped a link in the live chat, and we will put it in the podcast show notes. Let's make sure we remember to do that. So yeah, take advantage of that too. One more chance to win an IOU for a BlackBerry KEYone. Don't miss out. Ba-ba-ba-bum. What else are we going to talk about today, guys? James?
Something I saw at the NYC meetup that I thought was kind of crazy was just so many Priv owners who were just like ecstatic for the KEYone. Did you see that as well?
Yeah, so it's been interesting because obviously at the meetups we bring out like hardcore BlackBerry fans, and I'd say today that means either you're on BB10 or you're on an Android BlackBerry, or you may have a bold 9900 and that maybe makes you the most hardcore because there are definitely, I think every event I've been to, somebody has come with an active 9900 and they're like, this is my baby. They always have a second phone, whether it's like and it won't be a second like in BlackBerry. It might be like, okay, here's my iPhone, here's my Samsung or whatever. But then they have the 9900 as their like just workhorse texting machine. But what was interesting here is, Priv owners clearly when they see the KEYone and they pick it up, it's like, take my money right now, right? Because they're not having this internal debate of like, I love BlackBerry 10. Am I going to like Android? They've already committed to Android, right? They're already like, boom. So to them, this is like better in every way, right? It's like, okay, camera's going to be better. It seems faster. Keyboard is way better. Battery life's better. Somebody joked about, hey, it doesn't get hot like the Priv. kind of notorious for being, I mean, I know the Note 7 was explosive, but I was literally worried the Priv would blow up because it was a hot running phone. Especially too, didn't they do like one software update and then it got even hotter afterwards? I remember it just got
it actually got cooler after the marshmallow
it was after
update.
it fixed it. Yeah, it was just like a hot running phone. But like Priv owners totally, I think, are. It's like if you own a Priv, don't think run to the store to pick up your KEYone. But even BlackBerry 10 people, I mean, I don't know. I think the neat thing now is, I really love the KEYone. So, and I'm a fairly harsh judge and pretty realistic judge on different phones when they come out, if they've got that BlackBerry feel or not, if I love it or not. And so I'm pretty confident people will like it, but it's like every time you go to a meetup, I'm like, well, I wonder if people are going to like it or not. What if nobody likes it? And everybody loves it, right? The hardware feels great. Screen's great. Keyboard's good. I saw some different comments. Like I've been pretty adamant that to me, this keyboard is one of the best that's ever been on a BlackBerry. This time around, I saw some comments like, well, I think the classic keyboard's better. Maybe the Q10 keyboard is nicer. Definitely better than the Priv in that. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I really have taken to this keyboard because I think it's a small keyboard, but it's big enough to be accurate on. And even the height, which is a little bit shorter, it just makes you actually faster to type. Like you're not moving less travel, right? So it's like a minimal travel keyboard with really good accuracy, good button roll. I do think part of it is because I have my favorite accessory on the back of my phone, which makes me, I'm going to turn to the camera here. I don't need to squeeze quite as tight on the phone. Like when I have my hands, I can open up my palms a bit. So it's just more comfortable for me to like open up my hands wide as if you're almost holding like a passport, like that wide, but then keep my thumbs tight. But I found the keyboard to be like fantastic on this thing. So overall good though. Camera takes good photos. A lot of excitement.
Now, one of the main things I think a lot of people were kind of really excited about the KEYone for was that battery, right? That massive battery. And the Priv has a large battery, but I've never, in my uses of the Priv, gotten the battery I should have gotten out of it in terms of how it actually ran. I don't know if it was optimizations or whatnot, but from what we've seen, every time we leave those events, those devices are still like ready to go for another 4 hours, you know, and we're tired and we're done for the night. But those devices, the battery life and the optimizations that they've done on the KEYone are just rock solid. So, you know, I think that's one of the main reasons someone should really be looking at the KEYone. The battery life is phenomenal, and then you get everything that you're really interested in from the Priv, kind of reduxed and renewed, right? The classic and the KEYone keyboards are fantastic, right? Good keyboards, but the touch layer that you get on the KEYone with the fingerprint sensor and everything else, all the other smart capabilities, just take it to the next level.
Well, I think basically what it comes down to is like the Priv had a great processor in there. Well, reasonable processor anyways, at least at the time. Most people were like excited. Okay, it has a really good processor. It has a good camera in it. It has a really good battery. But the problem is that, I mean, when you put that processor in there, that's obviously going to impact the battery, which goes back to the part of the selling point of using the Snapdragon 625 in there. It's not battery intensive. That's why it was chosen, so that you could go ahead and get the maximum amount of battery life while still having a quality experience when it comes down to the processor speed, right? So that's the balance that you get when you actually pick up a KEYone. You get the good battery life, you get the good processor that's in there, and you get everything else that people love about the BlackBerry keyboard and BlackBerry services and stuff like that. So I think that's where the comparison between the Priv and the battery life and the keyboard and all that like really starts to shine, because when you put the KEYone next to it, the KEYone, it may not check all those boxes in terms of specs, but specs don't really matter at the end of the day if your phone isn't running, because you have to go charge it. You know what I mean? Totally. It doesn't matter.
It's totally true. What's different on that note too is once you know your phone can go all day long on battery life with you using it all day long, you simply use your phone way more, right? Like when you have a phone that's a little bit touchy on battery life, you end up thinking about, when am I going to have to charge it later? Do I have a external battery pack on me, or am I going to be driving to be able to plug it in? And it's on it, like, even if you don't realize it, you're sort of like limiting your use and thinking about it because you have this freaking limitation. The thing with the KEYone is I use this phone 24/7. My wife is getting angry at me because she's just like, oh, Kevin, like I do not put the phone down. But part of that it's not me being bad. It's just like, because I know I can use it all the time, I freaking use it all the time, no matter what I'm doing. And I think that's huge. I think that's, killer feature of the KEYone is like, keyboard's great, but you're right, James. It's like battery life is probably top of the list. And I hope that's something that they, as BlackBerry Mobile does more phones, or any of the licensee partners around the world do more phones. I think that's one of those like BlackBerry signature traits I would love to never see forgotten, because obviously there'll probably be full touchscreen models, keyboard models. So it's like, well, how do you make a full touchscreen BlackBerry still a BlackBerry? Give it that freaking battery life that you're never going to have to think about, because then it's like, Who cares if it has wireless charging? Who do we even need? I mean, I like that it has quick charge 3 and you can boost it quick, but it's like, I never have to boost it because there's always battery left to spare. Like
Exactly.
it outlasts me. So
I think BlackBerry Mobile has done just a really nice job of honoring that BlackBerry DNA in a lot of different ways. And I look at Priv and I look at the personal kind of shortcomings that I have for the phone. And then I look at KEYone and it's like, wow, they took all the user feedback and made sure like that was taken care of. Like squishy back on the Priv in some instances, glass weave, it's not there, right? You have the nice rubberized texture that just feels super good in the hand, right? People were complaining about the Priv plastic keys being kind of shallow and having no feel to them, right? Well, the keyboard on the KEYone is perfect, like rock solid. And even, the plastic keys that you can kind of rub off the lettering on, right? They've done a great job of building the KEYone keyboard. And I don't know, Kevin, I've never held a P9983, but would you say the keys are kind of similar there?
So it's funny because that's one of the comments I've seen pop up a couple times now. And that's one of the phones. I never owned a 9983. Wow. And I can't remember. I don't have one in my arsenal here. So, and it's actually, I'm supposed to have one. And I don't. Did you get it, Blaze? Or did I just not get one?
No, I don't think you ever got one.
I don't think I ever got one.
I don't have one.
It bugs me now. Sure. I'm really ticked off because I'm like, but I looked at the photos actually just before the podcast because it came to my head. I was reading a forum thread or something like that from New York, and a few people said, "Oh, it's like that." And I'm like, that's not a good example because the number of people who've actually used that keyboard, it's not even a worthwhile comparison to me. But it definitely, I don't think it had the frets, but it looks like it may have had the glossiness to the keys, maybe the approach they took to the actual key itself.
Yeah, and that was another thing, right? Priv didn't have frets. This has super nice glossy frets, right? Yeah. And it just adds to the feel of the phone. And I don't know, like I said, I think BlackBerry Mobile's done a really nice job of like honoring and listening, and that's so important, especially as we kind of build back on where BlackBerry's going as a handset offering with these multiple partners. They have to honor that DNA kind of in a consistent way, kind of across the different people that are going to be building out these phones. So I'm interested to see, if KEYone is really that flagship, what are the other partners around the world going to kind of do to help kind of pay homage to that growth and that path that we're going now down towards. So it's really exciting.
Good call. I think one of the things too, coming back to, some of the interviews and doing like the soundbite, I think what's interesting is there's what I love about the KEYone is there's a very intentional choice that was made in the specs. And what that does is it makes it more of a timeless device, right? Like if as you launch smartphones to market, all you ever care about is putting in the latest spec, you basically make your phone's story, like the story around the phone, obsolete as soon as a newer phone hits the market 2 months later, a month later, 6 weeks later, because it's no longer the best. And I think that the thing here is, it's a mature market, right? You make a choice now as to what you want to buy. And, if you want a phone that's amazing for VR experiences, well, you probably don't buy this one. But if you want something that has crazy good battery life and it's, a communication first tool, you buy a KEYone. But by doing that, I think, it's like, look, the Galaxy S8 is going to get announced. I think this coming week is their big event.
That's in like 2 days.
Yeah, that's going to hit the market soon.
28th, yeah.
The rumors will go to the iPhone 8 or whatever is going to come out, or get announced in the summer, the fall time there. And the nice thing here is it's like, yes, we all want the KEYone to get to market immediately, right? The sooner the better. But if it comes out a week before the S8, 2 weeks after the S8, blah, 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 does it matter? Not really, because it's not competing as this like media-centric device trying to cram all the top tier stuff. So I think this is the kind of phone, 12 months from now, I think it's still going to be a really solid phone. 18 months from now, I think it's still going to be a really solid phone. We'll see where things go. Obviously, like Android's announced now, Android O, right, which won't hit anytime soon into phones. But we always know there's going to be a newer operating system, and then we know there may be ways that you can make something even more expensive and higher end, or which if that's the goal you want to do. I think one of the interesting things that also going to these meetups, I love it because people give you feedback. So obviously we talked earlier about like, why didn't they call BlackBerry QNX and just leave BlackBerry for the phones? I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Another thing, I think that came up at the New York event, or was it the Miami event, was the notion that, when you take hardware that's like this kind of perfect in your hand, and you think about, look, companies always want to build more products, right? So it's like, what would be the successor to this phone at some point, whether that's a year out or 6 months or 2 years, like whatever time frame, right? I don't think it's, I think this is going to be, again, a device that rolls out and has a pretty long shelf life to it. It's like, well, what would you do differently? And it's like, well, putting in a better chipset's not necessarily, or not a better, but like a bigger chipset number, the 800 series or something. I'm like, well, would you want to? Because if that's going to cut into your battery life, maybe you wouldn't.
Compromising the experience.
It's maybe compromising. So you got to be really careful to pick what you'd want. But I was like, somebody suggested, well, and so we got into this debate while we were, at the meetup talking and drinking and that. So I'm shouting and everybody's shouting. It's just like, if anybody walked in off the street, they'd be like, why are these people yelling at each other about phones? So we're shouting at each other, and it's like, well, and the guy said, he's like, well, I would pay for, whatever hundreds of dollars more if you gave me a KEYone Pro that had like 128 gigs of RAM or memory, I should say, which is, I'm like, okay, I would probably pay more for that, just because I always will pay more for something like memory, even though I can stick a 2 terabyte micro SD card into it. I would still be like, okay, that makes sense. And then it was like, what was the other thing? Maybe OLED screen, if you could put that in there. Which I always like a nice OLED. That's nice glossy black, and that's actually good for battery life. So that could be, more expensive component, but solid. Forget what else we figured out. Camera on this is really good. But it was an idea.
Yeah, that's all I want.
Say it again.
A waterproof BlackBerry. That's what I want. Yeah. Figure that out for me, and I'm game. I will spend $100, $200 more for that.
With all
Here's the thing, though, man. Like, I'm all for a waterproof BlackBerry because it does add interest and consumer level interest and stuff like that. But realistically, well, maybe Kevin's the exception here because I know how he abuses phones. But how many times have you ever needed a waterproof phone? When have you dropped your phone?
So
in the
it's
water?
interesting, yeah, because needed almost never. I think if you have one, the times I've used it differently, and some of this is really random, right? Like I went for a medical checkup thing. I think I talked about my colonoscopy experience and all that. So like I had a free pass to the gym at Mayo Clinic when I was there, and they had a crazy big like steam room sauna. So I took my waterproof phone into the sauna, and I was like, okay, I would never do this ever. And, right. I was curious to see if it would break, right? Now, is that a waterproof phone? No. Once you have it, maybe you could use it, a little bit differently.
Right.
My university business was like jet ski rentals. So I have destroyed a couple phones having them in my shorts, and then jumping off the machine into a lake. But yeah, I'd be curious if they could do it though with the buttons. It could be doable at some point because you would do it under the button. You'd have to like rip a button off and see what's there. But if it's like coated underneath, it could be possible. I don't know.
It's probably just expensive,
Yeah, but I think it was a good point, right? Because I was thinking like I stick with it. Like I think this phone in whatever a year, because of the very intentional specs, is still going to be a really good phone. So then it's like, well, what do you put out that's different? And obviously, like, the Priv was too expensive for the market, and the market kind of, I think, didn't take to it because it just didn't deliver the, I think between the BlackBerry brand at that time and what they were trying to pull off and the price point, it was just too high. So I think this price point they're coming in at is really smart. But then there's obviously a subset of users who would gladly pay whatever just to have that full out one. Yeah. So I think there is like a little checklist of things that, since I've had the KEYone, I've never been like, oh, I really wish it had this and this and this, because I've been so overjoyed with just like how it's running today. But, if you're always thinking ahead, which we always like to do anyways, it's like, okay, I could see like that, more colors. People always talk about that. It's like, Kevin, do you think they'll do a insert your color here version of it? And I'm like, well, I don't know, but That's like Apple just released or announced their Project Red iPhone this week, right? It always comes out months later if they ever do a different color. That's just the way it typically happens.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
But
well, do you think they would do this? And it's like, I don't know, but it'd be cool.
I think they should. I mean, it's obviously not necessarily a BlackBerry mobile tradition, but it's a BlackBerry tradition that they sort of strayed away from over the years to be able to go ahead and release different colored devices. They put out different variations of some sort, like even the Porsche 993 had different variations, but that's out of the realm of possibility for most people in terms of the pricing and stuff like that. But I remember lusting after like the BlackBerry Curve in red, even though I already had a BlackBerry Curve in silver. Like, you know what I mean? They should go ahead and release colors. I mean, I don't know what that adds in terms of like,
it's economics, right? I mean,
yeah, right.
The challenging thing too, you always got to remember with keyboard phones, because there's always like scale, any manufacturing thing, right? The more volume you can produce with the same thing, the lower your cost per unit eventually gets. And physical keyboard phones always hurt that a little bit, because even on the keyboard front, they need to print out different configurations, right? There's the Azurity keyboard and what's the other one? The Azurity, the
QWERTZ.
What is it? The QWERTZ?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
QWERTZ. Yeah. The
TZ
QWERTY, the QWERTZ, the Azurity. Yeah. So,
I mean, the biggest request right on the CrackBerry forums now is an all black stealth version of it. So,
that'd be pretty. One. Yeah, if they do
I've been guilty of tweeting that.
A blacked out stealth one, but here's the thing: if they do the blacked out stealth one, it's like it would be awesome if even the flying bee logo and like the ring was still black, but just like it's like black and a slightly darker black or something, like just so there's like contrast within the black, but it's super blacked out. That'd be cool. But this is nice though for the default color config. It's very like Porsche design, silver passport like it is a premium.
I don't have any problems with the existing color. Like I'm already sold on that. But just when it comes down to people wanting different variations and stuff like that, I think if it's within the realm of possibility, then they should go ahead and do it, because it's something that was once a tradition within the BlackBerry that just sort of faded away. Why not bring it back if it's financially feasible to do so?
Totally agree. Well, guys, we're at the hour mark. Anything we missed on our hit list? Did we talk about it going to the FCC? The KEYone?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit. Availability wise. That's what we heard at Mobile World Congress. That's what it's been. Nothing's changed.
Here's the thing with the FCC posts. I mean, everybody likes to know when the device flows through the FCC and everything like that, but realistically, it doesn't necessarily mean much. Everybody tries to make the comparison between, it showed up at the FCC on this date, so chances are it's probably going to roll out and on this date due to the history and everything like that. But that's not really. I mean, that's a coincidence if you can actually correlate that directly to a potential release date or anything like that. Having it go through the FCC just means that we are generally one step closer, and that's what creates the excitement. But it flowing through the FCC doesn't really mean much in the grand scheme of things. You know what I mean? It's not like something important. It's not hugely significant. It's just we're one step closer. So I don't know why some people were up in arms over why it hasn't reached the FCC when it wasn't there, but it doesn't. It's there now, so don't worry about it. We're one step closer.
As I'm reading comments right now, as on CrackBerry, as you're talking, and then literally, it's like I want the people to listen to the podcast right now. So I posted a video. We posted a wicked video from the New York meetup. So if you haven't seen it yet and you're listening to this, you should go find it. It's like a 90-second highlight reel of the event. But then one of the comments is like, "Geez, I want it. Just release the phone now." Then somebody commented, well, by the time they decide to release the KEYone, there'll be no market for it. And I'm like, see, they're missing the point completely. They're playing this this thing this phone is going to be like, oh my God, the world's going to run out and buy it. I'm like, it's all about finding the audience who's been wanting this phone. And that's running independent of of that sales cycle. Like it's a different game. So I don't know.
That's like I replied to a post where somebody said, well, they got to get it out or at least have pre-orders up before the S8. It's like, why? The S8 already has its audience. The S8 has a built-in audience. That's what Samsung created over time. Like they know, like Samsung customers know they can depend on the S6, the S7, the S8. Like those customers are already sold on that device. It doesn't matter. The only people you're going to catch is like random people who want to, go into something different. Like people who are aware of the S8 are already sold on it. They're buying it no matter what. And it's the exact same thing with the KEYone customers right now too. BlackBerry Mobile is not going to go ahead and create a whole, massive audience by having pre-orders up within like the next 3 days or anything like that. The people that are interested in that device already want it. They're already sold on it, and they're going to buy it when it comes out, whenever it becomes available. So the scheduling doesn't really matter. You don't have to get it out before the S8. It doesn't matter because anybody who's interested in it is already sold on it. You know what I mean? And that goes for any sort of brand, like the LG G6, like BlackBerry Mobile.
So the G6 is always my one. Like, the G5 was a bit of a weird. Yeah. So actually, I like the G5. What it was trying to do, it just having like swappable modules and stuff. I think the Moto, what's the one with the Moto mods is kind of a better execution of what the G5 tried to do.
Yeah.
But those devices aside, LG often does great like phones that people love, like as in, the Android Central, Phil Nickinson, tech reviewer type people of the past love it. And then it just, outside of its local markets, it never feels like it takes off like in America.
Yeah.
And I'll be curious to see if with the G6, if they're able to make more like end consumer hype in North America, or if the S8 just like runs it
demolishes
over. Yeah, even though the G6, I've played with it. It's a pretty cool phone. Like I liked the Note 7 when it came out before the exploding thing happened. And to me, that was like a phone I wish BlackBerry would have made, right? Because it was just like, honestly, it came with that blacked out look to it. It was just a beautiful phone, really big screen, but still small in the hand. And it was cool. Like it was a good product. Software mainly good, a little bit too much, still they tweak Android a little too much and then it gets slow. One of the things I like about BlackBerry's implementation of Android is it's pretty clean. But then LG, like the G6 seems good, but is it going to be able to market or not? Because they're playing in that game of we need the latest, greatest attention. And it's not necessarily like what I think the KEYone's doing, which is we're going after a niche, and the niche is there regardless of what else is hitting the market. And I think I talked about this on one of the earlier podcasts, but you're seeing more and more journalists write articles that are basically saying like, here's the phones we're excited for in 2017. Here's what's going to happen in smartphones in 2017. And one of the winners, which there aren't a lot of them in the space, is that BlackBerry's, BlackBerry Mobile, however you want to slice it, dice it, BlackBerry smartphones are going to find their home because they still cater to a niche that loves them for what they deliver on, right? Which is, that great battery life, that security, that physical keyboard. And, they just need to get it to them. And I think the audience is bigger, obviously, for the KEYone than it's been with BlackBerry 10, because BlackBerry 10, I'm like a broken record, but once the apps aren't there, I'm out. You're making me carry two phones. So even if it's a great OS, it's like you don't buy an OS anymore. You buy an ecosystem with it, and if it doesn't have it, it's compromised. So I'm like, I think this phone's got pretty solid legs, and we'll see what happens. But it's exciting times again.
Oh, totally. Even with Priv, right? That was a device people waited, I think, over a year for when we first saw it at Mobile World Congress and when it launched, later that year. I think it definitely has a market that it's going to go for. And I've seen people's excitement, and I just think this is the device that a lot of people have been wanting. And even having those capacitive rows, it harkens back to the classic feel of that tool belt feel. It just seems like you mentioned earlier, Kevin, just such a purposefully built device, very thoughtfully designed. And I'm just so excited that we all can go hands-on with these. when they come available.
Sexy.
In Barcelona, that availability would start in April. And again, I don't see the needle moving too much in that regard.
Imminent,
So,
right?
definitely.
Launch is imminent. It could be, there are how many days in April? 30. So could be later April, could be sooner. But either way, we'll kill the time. That's only a few more podcasts between now and the end of April.
Yeah, well,
exactly.
I think me and James covered that last podcast too. It's like, yeah, it starts in April, and April is a month long, and you have to deal with regional rollouts and all of that stuff. So, one region gets it, the next region gets it, so on and so forth.
I just want to see if it ends up going on sale like online unlocked. That also satisfies a lot of people much more quickly, right? Where
yeah, absolutely.
Put it on wherever, Amazon or whatever channels, and people who want it can just at least get it.
Then you don't have to worry about carrier rollouts or anything like that.
I've been getting so many emails. It's funny, now that CrackBerry Kevin's back, it's like my inbox is flooded. And I love it. It's just that I try to reply to everybody, and sometimes it takes time. So even when I was flying home from New York, my go-go Wi-Fi was working. So I caught up on like a week and a half or almost 2 weeks of emails that were coming in. And I had a lot of emails from people who are like, hey, I live in Turkey. If you know anybody at BlackBerry or BlackBerry Mobile, please have them launch the phone here. And it's like, hey, I live in Pakistan. If you know anybody from BlackBerry or BlackBerry Mobile, please push them to launch the phone here. And it's like, it's just, there's pockets of people like that. Niche exists for this phone around the world, and people want it, and they're bringing me that message. So thank you for the email. I mean, I do where I can like try to make things happen and connect things. I have no influence or power. Well, no power over, the bottom line and what gets decided on stuff. But I'm definitely like, keep the knowledge, keep it coming in the forums, because, the more people who voice that, maybe there's a better chance of it over time. But at the same time, I'm like, well, my reply is, look, hopefully they sell it unlocked online, and then, worst case, you're going to pay some shipping and handling fees. But that's the nice thing about it not being a $1,200 phone is, you got to pay some shipping and handling and customs and duties. It's still a good value.
Right. Like if I wanted to buy an iPhone Red, it would cost me $1,100 right now.
Yeah.
In Canada. That's ridiculous. Like $1,100, man. That's crazy. And that's within Canada.
That's big money, big money. All right, boys, I need to get home. It's my wife's birthday this weekend, so I've been trying to be a better husband than I've been the last month, to the point where I still was like, I'm going to the office this afternoon.
Terrible.
Terrible. It's terrible. But
Blaze, is it Michelle's birthday this weekend?
Michelle's birthday is on March 31st. So,
ooh, same day of BlackBerry earnings. Wow.
Yeah.
Take our bets. Is the stock going up or down? Or should we just not even play that game? Maybe let's stay away from that game.
I don't want to play that game.
Nobody wins when you talk like politics.
Avoiding the politics. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Politics and stock.
Oh yeah, on Cheddar. Was that. I don't know if that was before the interview started when we were warming up, or did they bring that thing up? I was like, I'm Canadian. I don't talk about politics.
No, that was in the interview.
That was it. I'm like, oh. And then he's like, well, that gives you the right to talk about politics. I'm like, no.
Scratch that. We're done.
You're all welcome to Canada, but I refuse to talk about your political system or your current political climate. It's too crazy for me.
All right, James, you want to take us out?
Yeah.
Let me know where I can find you on social media, Blaze.
You can find me on Twitter at BLA1ZE.
Wait. Tomorrow that's going to be at SIRBL.
Sir Blaze.
Sir Blaze. Update. Sure I think you need to update it right now. Leave the handle, but please just change it to say Sir Blaze on your actual name.
All right, I shall do that.
We need a little crown emoji on your avatar or something.
Yeah. Wait, I like to use Sir CrackBerry Kevin too. Can we? I feel like we have to. If you're in the comments watching this now, as we butcher the end of the show like we always do, should we become Sir Blaze and Sir CrackBerry Kevin, or is that just ridiculous?
Well, I mean, we live for ridiculousness.
Sir Blaze.
Kevin, where can we find you on the social sphere?
at CrackBerry Kevin. I will not change it to at Sir CrackBerry Kevin, but maybe I will change the text to say Sir CrackBerry Kevin, because my award was waiting for me when I got home from New York. I was pretty excited. Too funny.
And
you need a selfie
James,
with that.
where can we find you at?
You can find me at JMZNVS. Basically, I pulled all the vowels out of my name. I
feel like
put a Z in there.
I feel like you missed an opportunity to have a second Z at the end.
I definitely did.
James,
I could change it, you know?
Don't you think? Like the double Z, because there's something, I don't know, there's something there maybe. Because I always have to remember to type it.
It would have had more and it would have like kind of rolled off the tongue a little bit better.
It's pretty cool though. You got it everywhere locked in though, right? So that's hard to do.
Yeah. Anyway, gentlemen.
Cool. Peace out. Next week, same time, same place, same bat cave, BlackBerry cave. We need like a nickname for this thing.
Crack cave.
Crack. No, not the crack cave. Not the stop.
The space heater next time. We'll be good to go.
Oh, I got some comments here. When can we expect new KEYone videos like top 10 features? I will try to do some videos this week, but it's going to depend on my travel schedule. But yeah, more CrackBerry Kevin videos. I love doing them. My editor Teddy has so much fun turning CrackBerry Kevin videos into just something really trippy. So, okay, peace out, guys. I don't know why I'm ruining this now.
We had such a nice flow, and then Kevin just screwed it all up.
Thanks to everybody for listening. James, you rocked it as always. Sir Blaze, you are truly a gentleman and sexy. I probably should just shut up. Thank you, everybody else, for tolerating me. To everybody I met in Miami and New York, everybody was freaking amazing, and you guys are literally the best. And I hope to meet more of you soon as we take, hopefully, some CrackBerry meetups to more cities around North America and beyond. I'm just stopping it now.
I'm waiting.